spent on the stadium itself. Now, I want us to shift focus to the Champions League that happened on Tuesday and Wednesday. And there were some pretty juicy matches. Karaoke, on Tuesday, you called out the game between Galatasaray and Juventus. I remember you saying that there's absolutely no way Juve were going to whitewash Galatasaray. And it's Juve that ended up getting a proper thumping.
Yes, I had seen it mention the fact that Victor Osimhen coming back to play against Italian teams who he's terrorized before. Mauro Icardi, the captain of Galatasaray, also being in that squad. And there were several other players, of course, within the same squad who have experience within the Serie A. It was a whitewash, and the funny thing, or the weird thing, is that Juventus actually seems to have a grip of the game at the very beginning. Then it just slipped away from them. But Galatasaray, I was just looking at that 11 that they put up, and they seem that there's something happening, and we're not maybe paying attention to it fully. There's something happening in Turkey. When you look at the kind of players who are joining the Turkish leagues, it's playing competition, especially. I'm looking at Italy, for example, being the guys, Italy, the Bundesliga, and Turkey. Because if they have players like Leroy Sané, for example, in the books of this club,
and Golo Kante has gone to Fenerbahce.
Exactly. Noah Lang, or who's actually one of the most hyped Belgian players at the moment, playing in this particular club. They have Davison Sanchez in defense. They have Gundogan in that league.
Former Man City.
This league basically has intentions. The intentions are very clear from the Turkish Super League to be able to overtake and perhaps even now start challenging the Spanish La Liga and even the English Premier League. So I'm saying, watch out for Galatasaray, watch out for Turkish clubs.
See, the other thing is, I've had the privilege of going to Al Sami. That is the home of Galatasaray. If you've ever had even footballers, Rio Ferdinand talking about an environment that is so threatening that it gives you nightmare to even think of playing football there. That is Al Sami for you. The fans for Galatasaray, they create hell. It's an atmosphere.
Actually, it's called the kitchen.
Exactly. Al Sami is hell for opposing players. It is not just about Galatasaray having some of the best. Because I remember even when Didier Drogba at a particular time went to play there. So I think the owner has money and the caliber of players that are there and the kind of football that are there, it is a high time that now we saw Galatasaray trying to win something, because Fenerbahce had gotten Jose Mourinho and he was trying to do something in that club. Unfortunately, he didn't perform to the expectation. He got fired. But Galatasaray, I mean, having a striker that like Osimhen, players like Ilkay Gundogan, and the atmosphere that their fans create, definitely, I don't think Juventus would have tried. Even if they tried, but at a particular point, they'll just crack.
Wow.
And it's not just Juventus alone. Not just Juventus
Any
alone.
team.
Take Real Madrid there.
They will lose.
I'm not saying they will lose. They will struggle.
Oh, they will
because
struggle.
Winning these days is not a guarantee.
Yeah, they're very
It's
true.
not a guarantee. You can ask. There's another team in EPL known as Wolves. I love that.
Not yet.
We are coming there.
It shows that winning is not a guarantee.
Winning is not a guarantee.
My point. That is my point.
Anyway, Galatasaray versus Juventus, that game ending 5-2 in favor of Galatasaray. There was another game, by the way, a very fiery one, Monaco versus PSG. That was a French derby match. And Thige, PSG managing to win these 3-2, and two of the goals coming in from a substitute who walked in, a 21-year-old walking into the game and literally scoring two and giving an assist. And Monaco were very sure they had won it. They were leading 2-0.
Oh yeah, but it was a crack of a match. I watched that when I was actually sharing on our Sports Garage group earlier on. Flying start from Monaco, following Balogun, the United States of America international.
Yes.
He got off to a flying start, two fast chances, and he buried both of them 2-0 for Monaco within 20 minutes. It looked like PSG were in for another nightmare. But then again, they have their own youngster in Desiree Doué, who comes in and within by halftime. Actually, that game had been equalized, but then something happens. Alexander Golovin for Monaco is sent off.
Yes, a clear red.
A clear red card. That is where the game changed. I would have wanted to see that game go on if it was 11 v 11,
like the one they played at Rennes.
Exactly, and I'm looking forward to this second leg. This thing is not over yet. Monaco are
a
still
grudge.
going to give these guys a run for their money. I saw that game and I was saying, after the red card, it was very clear that the tactical level of PSG, they have that discipline, and the kind of football they play, they made total use or total advantage of that one man by moving the ball around. You see, we always say in football, let the ball do the
talking,
do the walking and the talking. Yeah, so that kind of possession football, it totally wasted Monaco. But in the second leg, there'll be 11v11. There's only one goal. Hakuna ile mastori ya zamani sijui away goal. This thing is gonna be fire in a week's time. Yeah,
it's going to be fire.
There's something that I like watching about the French national team and their league. I think it's a high time because these guys have benefited a lot from we Africans, especially West Africans. You see, the idea of you Karaoke Thige kwenda kutafuta kazi and marrying there and your son now trying to, you see, all these kids, akina Desire Doué, Ousmane Dembele, you see, their fathers are from here in Africa.
Yeah.
So I think there's something that we should be learning about our own.
But sasa sisi ni watoto wetu wangapi wako huko nje wanacheza saa hii that you know.
No. Let me tell you one thing. One day I sat with Michael Koth and he asked me, Shadi Udivo angekuwa wako, Belgium ikupatie chance ya World Cup ama Harambee Stars, ungemwambia ende
World Cup.
Sasa
That's the thing.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
My point is we are coming back to the point of the stadium. Tuache corruption.
Corruption.
Na siasa za kipuzi.
Ndiyo hiyo sasa.
So that our kids, even if they birth them there, they can come back here.
They can come back home and play
help.
football.
You see how Senegal is doing.
Yeah.
Because if you see
Ivory Coast as well.
Ivory Coast as well.
Yes.
Aliou Cisse actually went to under 23 camp, a national team ya France. Akatoa captain huko. Khalidou Koulibaly was their captain.
Yes.
And he talked to his parents na Khalidou Koulibaly akakubali kuchezea Senegal because you see at least watu wamejipanga. You see, watu wamejipanga. Otherwise, kama hatutajipanga, then tutapangwa tu na
tutapangwa. Anyway, I want to go through the others, thinking very quickly because I'm realizing we've spent so much time and there's an issue that we really need to discuss as far as the Champions League is concerned. So, Borussia Dortmund beat Atalanta 2-0. Olympiacos lost at home to Bayer Leverkusen by the same margin, 2-0. Bodo Glimt beat Inter Milan, and that is a game that we definitely going to talk about. 3-1 Club Brugge drawing 3-3 with Atletico Madrid. Now, I've intentionally not mentioned two matches, and one I want to first put Andenga to task.
Yes,
Andenga, when we were here on Tuesday, you very loudly told me there is no way Newcastle is going to beat Karabakh. Only for Karabakh to be properly hammered at home. 6-1.
I didn't think, honestly. I didn't see. I saw them giving a fight.
Yes.
I saw them giving a fight. But again, you have to look at the quality of English Premier League. The league itself. The league itself, you can see even a team like Nottingham Forest, who are basically struggling towards relegation. But in Europe, they are really, really doing well. So it just shows the power. I thought Karabakh, probably they will come up the way they did for Manchester City. I thought that they would really give in a fight. But the other thing is that this Newcastle is what we call moto baridi. You don't know, leo yuko, kesho hayuko. So I wasn't really sure. Based on the Karabakh I saw against Manchester City, I thought that they would really, really give Newcastle a run for their money. But Newcastle again, like they say huko mtaani, leo ukiamka na mguu ya left, kesho unamka na ya right. So I believe waliamka na ya right, and then they really gave them a thrashing. So but I really thought that it was their time to shine, because Karabakh, which country they come from, you see these are small clubs,
small countries, team,
Eastern European countries as compared to Western European powers. So and I believe that can be the case with Turkey, having a team like Galatasaray coming out to challenge the status quo, a team from Western Europe, and this team does well, then it changes the mindset of power of football, and I believe that is something that is good for football.
Well, it is something that is good for football. Karaoke, you have always been our master as far as Italian football is concerned. Let's discuss this Bodo Glimt 3, Inter Milan 1, because that was a shocker for Inter Milan going to a very chilly Norway and getting properly beat.
Yep, it's been that year for Norwegian teams. The most important one, the most important reference I can give you, when any Norwegian team looks at an Italian team now, they're looking at them like, you guys, tumewaeka kwa mfuko. The qualification for the World Cup is the best example. Norway were in the same group as Italy.
True.
Italy, who were multiple, I think 4-time world champions. what happened is that they beat Italy home
And away.
and away.
Yes.
The last game was played in Milan, the same stadium where Inter Milan played.
Yes.
And they were hammered properly by Haaland and company. This is home and away. And remember, the Norwegian league or the Norwegian national team depends largely on players who are based within
Home.
Norway. They have a few guys who are based outside, like in Haaland and a few others.
Agina Solov.
Yes.
They, they now have some very, very good players.
But they're not very many.
They're just a few, like 5.
Yes, exactly. But the bulk of
That's
the other
fine.
players are based in
Home.
Norway.
Yeah.
So when you see Norway qualifying for the World Cup ahead of Italy, and comfortably so, there was no debate between who's number 1 and who's number 2.
True.
That tells you that something beautiful is happening within the Norwegian league and that particular league, and that's the demonstration of that. The other thing is the confidence. Once you've beaten Inter Milan, the defense of Inter Milan is essentially the defense of the Italian national
Italian,
team.
yes.
Yeah.
When you're
Like
looking,
Di Marco.
yes, exactly. Di Marco, Bastoni. You're looking at
Yeah.
essentially the Italian national team. Even in midfield, you'll find players who are in the national team, and beating those guys comes from that confidence. Unajua ukisha chapa mtu mara moja, mara mbili,
true.
then every time you face that opponent, it doesn't matter their pedigree. You face them with some confidence because you know we've done this before. We can always do it again.
But there's something also we have to talk about Italy. I
Yeah.
think Italy, they do have a problem that back in 2006, out of the 2006, I think the Germans realized that an ordinary German doesn't have the behavior of like we Africans. So just easy Africa, we believe that children are the source of wealth. Them Germans and the Italians, you'll find watu wameoana 40 years and they never have a kid.
True.
You see, that affects their national teams because now we are talking about even if you have a golden generation. The last time Italy won a World Cup, it was in 2006. Do you know the guys who won the World Cup for them?
Yes.
Akina
We
Francesco
know.
Totti, do you know the age?
Yeah. And
Akina Gennaro Gattuso.
that was one of the first time we actually ever saw a defender winning the Ballon d'Or.
Fabio Cannavaro. Exactly, but look at the age.
Yes.
So once these guys are gone, who's coming in?
Yeah.
And that's the now they even took Gnonto, who I believe is from Ghana.
Gnonto is Ghanaian.
Even their racism now has to go down wherever, hata kama nakuchukia we come.
Itabidi tu hauna choice.
Sina choice because watu wa home.
They don't have homegrown players.
No, watu wa home hawendi Pumwani. You understand?
That's the thing.
I get it. So
You get it.
It's
So
an issue.
that is also an issue with Italy because the Italian population by itself, even you go to if you go to a normal household in Italy and even find a normal family with 2 kids, you're lucky. You're lucky. Now they have to try and depend on foreigners. Because Germany went
Watu wa
that
kukam,
way.
watu wa
Watu wa
kumoka.
kukam. Germany went that way.
And
They
it's
took
true.
akina Mesut Ozil, akina Boateng, and 2010 in South Africa they did something. But 4 years later in Brazil, they were world champions.
Yeah.
So I think for Italy, they are lacking a generation that is coming to pick up.
Homegrown.
Because even if they are top scorers, who's the top striker now in Italy?
It's Lautaro Martinez is leading in the.
He's Argentinian.
He's Argentinian.
He's Argentinian by the way.
Yeah, Giro Immobile. How old is Giro Immobile? Even if he leaves Lazio, you feel like there's a gap because he's the king of Lazio. Yeah, when he went to Turkey, you're like, no, there's something missing at Lazio. But this guy is like 36. So is there an 18-year-old that can, because if you go to England, of which they've benefited again from we Africans, a Nigerian like Bukayo Saka who plays for them, he's about 18, 19,
By then, that
20.
English team has so many imports. Eh?
Yeah, they are imports.
Yeah.
Au na France tumewasaidia. So it's a high time pia Italy came and talked well to us. Toeni mambo ya visa.
No.
We go there.
It's also a good hint. What you've just done, Shadi, umefanya a very good ad for some Kenyan jamas. Kuna kazi inahitajika kule. Kuna kazi inahitajika watu wende wachape job.
Lakini shida ni wazee ama shida ni watu wanazaa. Anyway, long story. Hatuta digress your story. Now, I want us to shift focus to Real Madrid's game versus Benfica because again I said I intentionally did not mention particular games. Now, let's talk about this game because this game was won by Real Madrid by a 0-0, courtesy of a Vinicius Junior goal. Now, as Vinicius was running away to go celebrate, there was a conversation that happened between him and Gianluca Prestiani. And Gianluca literally covered his mouth with his jersey and said something to Vinicius. So as Vinicius was running to celebrate, he ran directly towards the referee and he went to complain.
Said, "Huyu amentukana." Ameniita monkey.
Anyway, we don't know what was said. We don't know what was said. But truth be told, Vinicius ran to the referee, and the referee stopped the game as per the FIFA regulations for 10 minutes. Now, guys, at this time and age, there are certain questions that are coming up. First of all, I've seen a lot of people, of course, literally coming out and criticizing Gianluca and telling him that he shouldn't have done what he did. But now another question has come up, and I'll start with what Mourinho said same day, because he asked, why is it that every time an issue to do with racism comes up, Vinicius is involved? Does it mean there is no other black player that is playing for Real Madrid? Does it mean that there is no other black player, that actually there are no black players that play for Benfica? In fact, Jose Mourinho went all the way to remind Vinicius that the biggest player in Benfica's history is actually black.
Eusebio.
But
then, he mentioned that and then said he should have celebrated differently. Well, for me, it cuts both ways. You can argue about whether Vinicius is the only black player, na kama anaonewa, or whether he behaves in a way of feels in his own mind that, he's like already being just a step away from just being triggered because of his own indisposition and where he comes from and how he's grown up and his own personality. That said, Mourinho himself, also, I can ask him a question. How are you supposed to celebrate? How do you do a half celebration or a muted celebration?
There's no half celebration.
If I'm celebrating, I am celebrating. If I'm happy that I've won, I am happy that I've won.
True.
And I should celebrate as I feel. The other thing is that racism thing is on. It is there in football and it needs to be worked on. There are things, and for me, that Mourinho guy, the same Mourinho guy, I cannot put it past him. I remind you an incident, again, that involves Italians. Yeah? About the World Cup, that same World Cup that was mentioned, the 2006 World Cup, the final. Zinedine Zidane was the best footballer in that entire World Cup. I said it on the day to a friend of mine. I said, if Zinedine Zidane plays well, Italy will lose this World Cup. So they knew we have to do something to Zinedine Zidane. What did they do? They used something different. They used dirty tactics, an insult against his sister, his mother, something personal that just gets you off your game. And it got Zinedine Zidane
a red card.
Sent off. The last game he played, he got off with a red card. The same mind games. I cannot put Mourinho past using mind games. We know Mourinho. We all know him very well.
The special one.
And he knows, and he saw that game, and he saw the brightest footballer for Real Madrid, if you're watching it, was Vinicius Jr. It wasn't even Mbappe. Mbappe was very subdued in that game. Vinicius Jr. ndiye alikuwa anafanya maneno. So how do you stop him? He knows the one card that this guy certainly will respond to, and he will respond negatively to, is that racism card. He's seen it before when he was coaching at Real Madrid. Mfanye ile kitu.
But again, there's a point that we're missing here. In as much as you might think that Mourinho is playing some mind games, there's a point that is really, really factual. Why always me, Ilea Balotelli? At a time for Vinicius, I think he has to look into himself in a mirror. That why always me? He's a very, very good player. And some of the issues that, remember when Rodri won the Ballon d'Or before Ousmane Dembele, some people really say that his behavior on the football pitch is one thing. And some of his behavior is actually provocative to the opponent and to the fans. Now, we do have an issue with the fans, because I remember after he celebrated that, and he celebrated that goal very provocatively. Antonio Rudiger, ukiangalia hiyo video, he went and apologized to them, akambia tulieni, and he got him out of there. But for Pestriani on the other side, he covered his mouth, and there's something that he said that we don't know. Mbappe was close, and he said that this guy actually alimtukana and all that. So I think for Mourinho to come out and say that and getting all this backlash, you see the people that are criticizing Mourinho are all black players, former black players. Akina Thierry Henry, Clarence Seedorf, even Luizao, ambaye alikaptenio Benfica, amesema hapana Mourinho. No, it is because of what we call historical injustice. Unajua tumekaaga na wewe Thige miaka yote, mimi ndio naonewanga. Hapana Thige sitaki kusikia. Even if
the boy who cried wolf.
Exactly.
It's that story.
Yeah, it is that story. So Mourinho has a point, a very, very valid point. But at the moment, people are not listening to Mourinho simply because of historical injustices.
Yes.
But the point that
And that
Mourinho
we also know Mourinho.
no. But his point is very, very. I think it's valid because Vinicius is an amazing player. You watch you'll tune in to watch Real Madrid because of a player like Vinicius.
True.
But this guy always comes into trouble with other guys. If you see other videos, atakuchenga na kuchekelea na kutukane.
Xtra. The sport.